one thing we've learned with our research over the last years about pediatric brain tumors has been that in some ways it's a genetic disease. Not necessarily meaning genetic that it's inherited from one's parents, although there are some types of brain tumors where children can inherit a bad gene, so to speak, that puts them at risk for developing that brain tumor. In most of our patients, we don't see that to be true. But really, it's a case where in whatever the normal cell was that developed into this tumor cell and made this cancer, that something has gone wrong in that cell. So something has gone wrong in the basic program, so to speak, of how it's supposed to grow, how it's supposed to divide, when it's supposed to die, like what its normal functions are supposed to be. Basically what happens in tumors is that the genetic code or the DNA of that cell has somehow gotten errors in it, so in its genes. And so when we talk about genetics, we're really talking about most often studying individual genes or individual proteins in a patient's tumor. Genomics just means doing that on a large scale. So instead of looking at just one gene that we might be interested in, there's roughly 20,000 genes that encode proteins in each of our DNA. And so genomics, we're really talking about doing it on the broad scale. So not just looking for one gene, looking at one gene that we're interested in, but trying to figure out what's really the landscape of what's the totality of what's going on in terms of the genetics of this patient's tumor. And so there's all different types of genomic tests, sequencing tests that have been developed, from microarrays to whole exome sequencing and whole genome sequencing and mutation panels and RNA sequencing and methylation profiling. It's like test after test. And each of them can offer something different in terms of what they tell us about the genome or the DNA and RNA and the genetic material of a patient's tumor. What we're really trying to figure out now is which of those tests are actually most useful at providing relevant information for patients. So the one key point is that the mutations we're looking for when we talk about that are most often what we call somatic mutations or tumor-specific mutations, meaning they're not something that the child has in every cell in their body, they're not something they inherited from their parents, but there's some error that's taken place after they were born and after their cells and bodies started to develop.